Picture this. June 6, 1944. A date that would turn the tide in World War II. The Allied forces launch an operation, the D-Day invasion, in the Normandy region of France, a historic event marking the beginning of a critical campaign to liberate Western Europe from Nazi occupation. This day led to the downfall of Nazi Germany. An event so immense and momentous, and while we all know about the brave men who stormed the beaches on D-Day, there's more to the story, lesser-known facts and details. Imagine years of secretive and meticulous planning that began at the dawn of the war. Think about the significance of the term D-Day in the military jargon, standing for the start of something enormous. Picture a global army, soldiers from around the world joining forces for one common cause. Contemplate on the strategic choices, the unexpected Normandy invasion, the deception, the unorthodox boats, and the jubilant reactions from those under the heavy boot of occupation. But there's one aspect, one intriguing part of this historic event that's you will find out soon enough. Hey there, Curiosity Explorers. Are you ready for another dive into the unknown? I'm your guide, Caesar, and joining me today is the ever-intuitive and vibrant Sonia.
Hello, Curiosity Seekers. Couldn't be more excited to be here, ready to explore the lesser-known corners of our history.
That's right, Sonia. And folks, don't forget to subscribe to the Curiosity Wonderland, comment on what you find most intriguing, and share the knowledge with your friends. The world is full of curiosities waiting to be discovered, so let's dive in together. It's hard to grasp the magnitude of what was happening during that time, isn't it? D-Day, a term that has become virtually synonymous with the Normandy invasion, was a pivotal moment in history that marked the turning point in World War II.
Absolutely, and it's interesting to think about the meticulous planning that went into this. It wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision, but a strategic move that had been years in the making. Leaders like Winston Churchill and Captain Lord Louis Mountbatten knew they had to fight Hitler on land to win the war. And so it began, this arduous and meticulous planning process for an Allied land invasion on the European continent.
Indeed. Can you imagine the pressure of organizing an event of this scale under such circumstances?
Actually, it reminds me of a story from my childhood. When I was in the 5th grade, our school decided to organize a historical reenactment day. Each class had to choose a significant event in history and recreate it. My class chose D-Day. Now, of course, on a much smaller scale, we had a model of the Normandy beach and paper boats, but the responsibility of recreating such a monumental event was not lost on us. The planning took weeks, and the stress levels were high. We wanted to be respectful and accurate, and every little detail mattered. Looking back, I realize it was just a school event, but at that time, it felt like we were planning our own D-Day.
What a great way to learn history, through hands-on experience. But let's get back to our story. After all, there's more to D-Day than most people realize. When we think about the involvement of the Americans in this operation, one key figure comes to mind, President Franklin D. Roosevelt. He had a crucial meeting with General Dwight D. Eisenhower in Tunis, Tunisia, in December of 1943.
Yes, and the message was clear. Roosevelt appointed Eisenhower to command the Americans and their allies in the invasion of Nazi-controlled lands in France and elsewhere in Western Europe. This marked the start of Eisenhower's work on coordinating all the landings that were to be done at Normandy.
And we need to remember that all of this was happening under a cloak of top-level secrecy. In fact, the term bigot was coined as an acronym for British invasion of German-occupied territory, and it signified the highest level of classification for any operation related to World War II, even surpassing top secret.
It's interesting how an unfortunate choice of acronym didn't faze them at all. The primary concern was preventing any leaks that could reach the Germans.
Exactly. And when we talk about the planning stage, there's this fascinating piece of trivia. Did you know D-Day was initially supposed to happen a day earlier, on June 5, 1944? But bad weather forced them to delay it. They communicated this change via the Bigot network, pushing back the invasion by 24 hours.
I can only imagine the tension. Timing was everything, and while they were ready to storm the Normandy beaches, they had to wait for a break in the weather.
Speaking of timing, it brings us to the term itself, D-Day. It's a phrase that was fairly common in military circles to denote the start of an operation. The D in D-Day simply stands for day.
The day the event itself will take place. It's a simple term that carries enormous historical weight.
Now, let's talk about the name. The invasion wasn't originally called D-Day. Instead, it was referred to as Operation Overlord.
That's an interesting piece of trivia. And D-Day was a term used for various military outings at the time, not just the Normandy invasion, right?
Correct. It's only in retrospect that we think of it exclusively in relation to the Normandy invasion. It's a way of paying homage to the incredible sacrifices made by those soldiers. But let's move on to a fact that is often overlooked.
Oh? What could that be?
D-Day was a truly worldwide affair. Most people think about the United States and Britain when they picture the Allied forces, but there was a significant presence from several other nations.
You mean countries like Canada and Australia, or those from Western Europe like France, Belgium, and the Netherlands?
Yes, but it went even further than that. Central European countries like Czechoslovakia, Northern European outliers like Norway, Mediterranean combatants from Greece, Eastern European countries including Poland, and men all the way from New Zealand in the South Pacific Ocean. Even tiny Luxembourg contributed.
That's amazing. It really was a worldwide effort. I suppose every bit of help was needed to make D-Day a success.
Exactly. The collective naval, air, and ground support was crucial to the success of D-Day and ultimately, the outcome of World War II. It was a remarkable demonstration of international cooperation. Now, while the Allies were preparing for D-Day, they weren't the only ones getting ready. Hitler had been instructing his Nazi underlings to construct an enormous Atlantic wall along the coasts of France and Western Europe.
And this wasn't a small project, was it?
Far from it. The defenses stretched for nearly 1,700 miles, extending from as far north as Norway to as far south as Spain. Hitler even wanted more, envisioning a 2,400-mile-long defense.
That's a massive undertaking. Hitler was expecting an invasion then?
He certainly was. He knew the Allies were going to attempt to reclaim the territories occupied by the Nazis. Interestingly, substantial portions of Hitler's wall are still visible today, a stark reminder of the past.
That definitely makes history feel a lot closer. So, moving to D-Day itself, why was Normandy selected?
It may surprise you to know that the beaches of Normandy were pretty much the hardest spot for the invasion. The Nazis had mapped out the entire coastline, and they believed Normandy was the least likely spot for an invasion.
Why was that the prevailing thought?
The beaches were beneath rocky outcrops that provided the Nazis a naturally fortified position. Normandy also offered one of the longest crossing distances across the English Channel, and there was no port in the area for the Allies to establish a base. Nonetheless, the Allies chose to do the difficult thing, leading to the monumental event we now know as D-Day. Now, the Nazis were expecting the Allied invasion to occur at Pas-de-Calais, which was the shortest distance from Great Britain and had a port. As a result, they fortified these areas more than they did in Normandy.
Then why did the Allies not choose Pas-de-Calais?
They knew the Nazis would be expecting an invasion there. They believed Normandy would have less robust Nazi defense units. Also, the beaches of Normandy were within range of air cover provided by British pilots.
But there was no port in the area, right?
That's true, but the Allies found a solution. They constructed 2 artificial ports and through them moved thousands of tons of supplies daily during the assault. This unexpected choice turned out to be a masterstroke.
That's quite ingenious. So, the element of surprise was crucial in this operation?
It was, and the Allies took it a step further. They initiated an operation, nicknamed Operation Bodyguard, where they disseminated fake news to mislead the Nazis.
Fake news? Like misinformation?
Exactly. The Allies flooded the zone with misinformation in the months leading up to the attack. They used double-agent spies, shared fake plans, set up dummy military camps, and even transmitted bogus radio messages to throw the Germans off their trail. It was a classic case of deception in warfare. The clever ruse didn't end with misinformation, though. Even as the invasion commenced, the Allies implemented one final deception. On the morning of June 6, just a few hours before the landing at Normandy, Allied bombers ran a high-altitude bombing raid on Calais, France. This was a last-ditch effort to convince the Germans that the invasion was coming at the expected location.
Quite an elaborate ploy. But it worked?
Indeed it did. While the image of the landing at Normandy is the one most people associate with D-Day, it wasn't actually the first action taken that day. Hours before the boats landed at Normandy, British and American joint airborne forces were already deep within enemy lines. Their mission was to capture the area around the Caen Canal Bridge and control it for the Allies, which would prevent the Nazis from reinforcing their troops or setting up a supply line. The airborne units eventually succeeded in their mission.
So the assault from the skies was the first step in taking back Normandy.
That's correct, and it's crucial to remember the bravery and strategic precision of these airborne troops. They were the first on the front lines, and their success paved the way for the beach landings that followed. The bridge they captured has been renamed the Pegasus Bridge, and every year, people gather there to reenact the events and honor those brave paratroopers. What a momentous day that must have been! It's mind-boggling to uncover the layers of complexity and strategic planning behind historical events like D-Day, isn't it, listeners? It makes you appreciate the courage, determination, and resilience of the people involved. Are you as fascinated by these revelations as we are? What thoughts or questions are crossing your mind as we delve deeper into this remarkable story? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to hit that like button if you're enjoying our journey through history. We're all part of this voyage of discovery. We've discussed the strategic planning and complex operations of D-Day, but we haven't yet touched on one crucial component that greatly facilitated the beach landing: the Higgins boats.
Yes, I've heard about them. Weren't they named after a Louisiana lumber business owner?
That's right. Andrew Higgins, frustrated by the inefficiency of the boats used in his lumber business, decided to design his own. He needed a boat capable of hauling heavy goods in swampy and low-tide areas. However, despite the boat's effectiveness, he had little success in selling them.
So how did they become an integral part of the D-Day operations?
Quite by chance, actually. Just when Higgins was about to give up, the federal government showed interest in his boats for wartime water landings. They placed a massive order for 20,000 boats.
That's quite a leap from not being able to sell a single one.
Indeed. These boats, which came to be known as landing craft vehicle and personnel ships, were instrumental in all of World War II. They were used extensively, including in Italy, North Africa, the South Pacific, and, of course, Normandy.
So these boats allowed the Navy to attack open beaches instead of ports?
Exactly, and this changed the way the war was fought. The Allies could bypass heavily fortified ports and land at relatively vulnerable spots on open beaches. This forced defending armies to spread their forces thin to cover more ground. Now, let's pause for a moment and ponder the chain of events that led to this critical development. A setback in a lumber business in Louisiana ultimately contributed to a significant military victory in Normandy, France. It truly demonstrates how unpredictable and interconnected the world can be, doesn't it? Makes you wonder about the ripple effects of our actions, doesn't it, listeners? As we delve deeper into the intricacies of D-Day, it's essential to remember the individuals whose lives were affected by this monumental event. One such person is Anne Frank, a young Jewish girl hiding from the Nazis with her family in an attic in Amsterdam.
Yes, she's known worldwide for her diary.
Exactly. Although they were hiding in fear, Anne and her family learned about D-Day through a BBC radio report. In her diary, she expressed jubilation at the prospect of liberation, writing, "Is this really the beginning of the long-awaited liberation? Will this year, 1944, bring us victory?" Her words are a poignant reminder that behind the grand strategies and military operations, there were countless individuals clinging to hope for a better future.
It's heartbreaking to know that despite D-Day marking the turning point of the war, Anne and her family were discovered before they could be liberated.
Yes, tragically, Anne Frank and her family were found by the Nazis 2 months after D-Day. She perished in a concentration camp before the Allies could reach her. Her diary, however, survived, serving as a powerful testament to the human spirit amidst the darkest times. As we remember D-Day, let's also remember individuals like Anne Frank, whose courage and hope continue to inspire us today. We've taken quite a journey today, delving deep into the intricate and often hidden aspects of D-Day. From the long years of planning initiated by Winston Churchill, to the global effort involving soldiers from over a dozen nations. From the strategic use of deception and misdirection, to the critical role played by Louisiana lumber businessman's unique boats. And let's not forget, the news of the invasion reaching a teenage girl hiding in an attic in Amsterdam, filling her heart with a fleeting hope of liberation.
And therein lies the mystery of history, folks. It isn't just about grand strategies and military operations. It's about individuals whose lives are changed forever, and about the ripple effects of actions that can turn a setback in Louisiana into a military success in Normandy.
The echoes of D-Day still resonate, reminding us of the hope, courage, and sacrifices made for freedom. So, whenever you encounter a D-Day in your own lives, remember, it's not just about the day itself, but about the years of planning, the global collaboration, the strategic decisions, and the ripple effects that truly turn the tide.
Well said. And with that, we're wrapping up this episode of Curiosity Wonderland. If you've enjoyed this journey into the lesser-known facets of D-Day, do share this episode with your friends. And don't forget to blast that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe for more profoundly curious content.
Thank you for joining us today. We greatly appreciate your time and hope that we've fueled your curiosity. Remember, in the vast expanse of history, there's always more to uncover. Stay curious, everyone.
Until next time, bye-bye.
Our journey through the lesser-known facts of D-Day was inspired by an enlightening article titled 10 D-Day Facts They Don't Teach in School by Selmy Angulo, published on Listverse on October 11, 2023. You can find the full URL in the video description if you're interested in diving deeper. Now, I'm off. Stay curious, folks.